Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Postgame Podcast. Cubs lose the opener in Cincinnati, 8-4 to the Reds. Javier Assad takes the loss. Cubs hit a couple of home runs, but couldn't get much going offensively. Luke Stuckmeyer, Ryan Herrera, Cody Del Mendo, and running the ones and twos. Joey is back tonight. Joey is back. The live YouTube chat is already up and livid. Thank you for subscribing to the CHGO Sports YouTube page. It's the best way to enjoy what we do because you can comment and tell us how you're feeling. I noticed that Becky would like to get rid of Pete Crow-Armstrong. Mm-hmm. I've seen some of that. I've seen a lot of people. Becky also said the Cubs will not get back to 500 this season. Yeah, a lot of people. Fly the L from the Godfather. A lot of people upset after. Yeah. Listen, I will say this. When we were talking about a week ago, we talked about 9 games against the White Sox and Reds in a row. It was time to feast. You lost the series to the Reds. You barely won both games against the White Sox, and now you're starting off with another loss to the Reds.
They're 3-3 in that stretch right now?
Yeah, it's not going well.
Yeah. 3-3 in that stretch, and 2 of the 3 losses, I guess would be 3. They lost 2 at home to the Reds to start that stretch.
Yeah.
Managed to come back and against the White Sox bullpen and, 2 different games to sweep that series. But then today start out with another loss on the road in Cincinnati. Wasted a couple homers there. Assad didn't look near his best today. Bullpen just, I know, and we'll talk about the Hodge one. He gets out of that inning. The doesn't blow that strike call, but he didn't. But then just the overall results from the bullpen just wasn't strong enough to keep the Cubs within striking distance. It's a tough loss on the road when you kind of had it in the bag there for a little. Or you look like you had it in the bag there for a little bit. And the Reds have been hotter the last couple weeks. They were one of the hotter teams in baseball, and so part of it is probably you run into a team playing well at the wrong time. That always plays into it, but it was a game they could have won, and then ultimately we just didn't pull out the win.
What are you most mad about, Cody?
That you gave me crap yesterday for not being happy about the Cubs beating the White Sox in comeback fashion in a walk-off fashion.
So I'm taking your anger tonight.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm just letting you know that I feel if there's any positive for me tonight, it's that I feel justified about not caring about sweeping the White Sox. That I'll say this, tonight they didn't lose because of bad defense. They didn't lose because of mental errors, base running errors. They lost because the bullpen was taxed and the ass man just didn't have it. Well, actually, he wasn't that bad. It's just the fact that the bullpen was taxed from having to be used so much against the White Sox, and Counsell pushed Assad into that 6th inning. And I even read Assad's game logs over the course of the season. He is consistently going 5 innings more often than not. He's had 2 starts where he's gone 6. All right, most of his starts he's going 5 innings. The pitch count was low tonight, but giving up the 3-run homer to Elly De La Cruz, and then even after that, you felt like maybe he got it back, but there was still some hard contact, and he got a little lucky with some of the outs that he was able to get. I felt like after 5 innings he should have been done, but because the bullpen was used so much against the White Sox because Shota didn't have a good start, and because Tyone wasn't good yesterday, Counsell tried to push Assad tonight, and so I'm not going to blame Counsell for leaving Assad in, and I'm not going to blame Counsell for the guys that he used because all the other guys had been used, and the guys that he brought in tonight I don't think they pitched yesterday. So that's just the fact of the matter about everything that I've said about roster management and roster construction. All right, bringing Kyle Hendricks in with runners on in the 7th inning. I mean, I understand you're already down 2 runs, but like Kyle Hendricks has been coming out of the bullpen for what, 2 weeks?
2-3 weeks now.
It's like that's not something he's used to. And also, as we've talked about many times, he's not a bat misser. Like, but I get,
and he hasn't pitched since Sunday, so it's not like Council's running him out there a lot. It gets to like you said, the bullpen got used a lot. He's the only guy that didn't pitch in the White Sox series in that bullpen right now.
And he came in because they were down 2 runs. But like that's how thin the bullpen is kind of at right now, considering how they had to use the bullpen against the White Sox. And so the only thing that I'm annoyed about still is the fact that you just didn't play well against the White Sox.
No, I mean, well, I don't disagree with Cody on that, just because like I think part of it is like you got like you, and from my point of view, like I think like if you're a fan, like you enjoy the win when it happens.
Yeah.
Like, you enjoy the win when it happens. They won a baseball game, you can enjoy that, but you
and
can't.
they did come back. Like give them credit for
yes.
I mean they were down and came back. It wasn't like they.
Yeah, so you enjoy the win when it happens, but you can't like also forget about the things you saw. So I think it's like the balance of like, you can be happy that they won a game, they came back, it was a fun game. Mike Tauchman is the walk-off homer, but then you're looking at it like they still didn't get to the starters in that series. They, there were some of the issues that we've talked about that like, Jed, I wrote about this, yesterday afternoon after we talked to Jed on Tuesday, like some of the stuff, especially with the offense that he talked about on Tuesday, even Tuesday or Wednesday night's game, still didn't like. You didn't see the change, like you saw some progress, but you didn't see you didn't see changes and improvements and all the stuff he mentioned that they need to do better. So it's like there was still reason to be concerned, even though, like I said, like as a fan, like fans should be happy after a win, but there is still like part of it where you don't just forget about the concerns because they won a couple baseball games. Like that stuff's still real and still around.
So hold on, so 1 second. Okay. Like one thing that we did like about the White Sox series was that the home runs were increasing, right? Like the power started to come back. We're like, if they're going to win games, they're going to have to hit home runs. They got to find power somewhere. Tonight, while I do agree that the bullpen was taxed and Assad didn't have the greatest start and all those things were frustrating, you had 2 home runs off Hunter Green, but you only had 3 other hits in the whole game. You can't win with 5 hits.
Yeah.
So again, it's the offense. Even though that the power was there, yes, all those things are true that you said about the bullpen and Assad and everything else. The White Sox series, you had 5 hits in the game. You're not going to win. You're not going to win, and you're certainly not going to win when a guy gets out of the inning and the umpire blows the call, and then he loses his composure probably a little bit or loses the feel, and then he throws 8 straight balls. I'll say it again. I've seen enough games. The White Sox series had so many bad calls at the plate. Please, can we just get the robot umps? Forget about the human nature of the game and yada, yada, yada. Tennis has the thing that even corrects the umpires. Can't we get the same thing that tennis has? I'm fine with whatever's going on in the minor leagues. Although I know Porter was one guy that was like, yeah, it's a little bit tricky to get used to some of the different systems. Whatever. It's got to be worse than what happened right there.
Yeah.
Or in the White Sox series where it was like you didn't know if a strike was going to be called right or wrong on every pitch.
Right. Well, and that's to your point, if they had a balls and strikes challenge system, if they get the call wrong, then
you can correct it at the very least.
Challenge it. Yes.
At the very least. If you don't want to go all in robot.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I think that's kind of where we've all kind of come to the middle on, like, Luke may want just, I don't know, do you want overall just automatic?
I want at least a challenge on it.
Yeah, I think
I don't want to slow the game down too much.
Yeah, which it doesn't. Me and Cody, like, we went to Iowa last year and we saw it and we're like, this is actually a great system.
Let's do it.
I think that's a happy medium between both sides. And
MLB already announced that that's not going to be a thing until after 2025. So this is just going to continue and give me heartburn for the next.
But doesn't it feel like they're getting worse?
Over the last week,
every game I watch, I'm like, that's not even close.
Listen, like I know people in the chat and people listening on the podcast feed are probably annoyed with the fact that, you know, we're like using the umpires as an excuse. I'm not
It's not the reason they lost.
I'm not saying that's the reason they lost, and I'm not even giving you excuses. But it was a clear strike, and they would have been out of the inning. And that would have been another great outing for Porter Hodge, because he came in for Luke Little, and he got a pop out and then a ground out, and then he would have struck out Stevenson, who has owned the Cubs this year and in previous years. It would have got him on the strikeout on a pitch perfectly painted right in the zone. It wasn't borderline; it was in the zone. And it's like, with how chaotic baseball is and how these little things can change a game so much. Yeah. It's frustrating when it's not your fault that shit happens. Does Hodge have to come back and execute better and not walk those guys? Yeah, absolutely.
Does it happen to both teams? Yes. Yeah. In the Sox series, I'm telling you, it was like every other at bat. You were well, that wasn't close.
But in that moment, they got to get that right, man.
Yeah, and that's why I think, like, you know, I've already seen people in the chat, like, you know, saying give reasons why they shouldn't do it. But it's like, technology improves so many things, and like, it's not even just baseball, like different sports, all the advances in technology. You should use it to improve the game in this sense. And again, like, I'm not saying take the umpires out of the game completely. And like, I like the challenge system because it does provide some strategy, especially if you limit the amount of challenges. Like, you have to kind of strategize how you use them. You can't just challenge every single thing, you know. But you know, to the point of Porter in like this game, as you guys have both said, like he got screwed on that call. It was a strike, but you. And this is a young guy, obviously, who's his 6th appearance in baseball. I remember when he first got called up, like he was only up in Iowa for like maybe a few weeks there. And even Craig Counsell kind of said, like, this is pretty fast for Porter. Like, I don't think any of us were expecting him to get called up, and he probably wouldn't.
Command was his big issue.
Yeah, had it not been for a lot of injuries, he probably wouldn't be up anyway. But like, in that moment, you know, you get screwed on the call. It's just like you have to be able to rebound, be able to respond, and just throw strikes. And like, and I get that's so easy for me to say. Like, I'm not on the mound, and you know, whatever. But like, in that situation, like you're major league pitcher, you're trying to get your major league career started. You got to get going and prove that you could be a reliable piece out of that bullpen. You got to just be able to move past it real quick, turn the page real fast, and throw strikes. And as you look at where the locations of like the next the 8 balls or whatever it was, like 6 or 7 of them weren't close.
Yeah,
like
right.
they were.
It was like those were not the umpire's fault.
It's like he absolutely lost it after that. So again, I'm not saying the guy, you know, I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve some criticism. Of course, he deserves some criticism on not being able to execute. It's demoralizing when, as a fan, at least, I'm speaking here as a fan more so than as speaking from his perspective. I'm sure, in the moment for him, he probably thought it was a strike, but also like he's probably not thinking like I am, because he doesn't see what the strike zone is like we see on TV. You know, he's just going based off what he knows, right? So I don't know what happened after that pitch and that led to those walks, but. Mm-hmm. It did kind of, I hate to say it, but it kind of gave me like Dylan Maples vibes, because Dylan Maples would do that too, where he would come in and he would look electric, and then one call didn't go his way, and next thing you know, he's walking the bases loaded, right? And
it fell apart for me.
Yeah.
And again,
but the difference with Porter Hodge and Dylan Maples in this scenario is that, like you said, like 6th major league appearance. And, you know, he's young and he's got to grow into this. So you can't just expect a guy to come up from Iowa and just come and dominate. And he had his first 5 appearances, he was perfect, right? So, you know, I'm not down on the guy or feel any different about him than I already did. I honestly feel bad for him. And then I'm also just pissed off at these goddamn umpires for ruining my freaking summer every year.
That's what I don't want people to misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that it cost the Cubs the game. I'm not saying that it doesn't go both ways. I know it goes both ways. I'm saying when your team is losing games like this, you get frustrated by little things watching a game on a nightly basis.
Sure.
And I'm sick and tired, winning or losing, of watching bad umpires call games at the plate. And yes, you don't have to let it go to the point where it impacts the game. In this case, it probably didn't change the outcome of the game. But don't tell me because it goes both ways it's okay. That's like saying, all right, well, don't wear seatbelts because you got the same odds as the guy next to you because he's not wearing one either. How about we just wear seatbelts and we improve the game?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why wouldn't we? If you can make the game better, why wouldn't you make the game better?
Yeah.
Because there's way too many missed calls.
Yeah.
Whether you're on the winning end or the losing end. The Cubs have gotten some calls too, but it's just, I just want to see it correct. Is it that bad? What's so bad about wanting the call to be correct?
Right.
I don't understand it. Hey, yeah, go ahead real quick.
You know, outside of that, you know, when you look at the rest of the bullpen tonight, you know, Hendricks, I understand the significance. I know we have to do an ad, but I guess quickly, I understand why, but man, the last person in that bullpen that should be coming out in a 2-run game with runners on base is Kyle Hendricks. But I get why it happened. I don't know. I guess it would have just been the start of a domino effect if they had used someone else. So, you know, it's to me, they need Assad to find a way to go. To me, that's why I said a while back that, like, I feel like he can be more effective out of the bullpen, and people yelled at me about that. And I said that they needed to get Hendricks right. Well, Hendricks hasn't got right, so that's why he stayed in the rotation. And, you know, like they got a lot of issues that we continue to talk about, and I don't know if a lot of them are ever going to get resolved, like internally at least.
Tell us about our friends at Prize Picks, because they keep my spirits up. They keep your spirits up? Of course they do. Daily fantasy? Oh.
Yeah. It's every day, right?
That means every day.
Every day.
Well,
Daily.
when I win, they keep my spirits up. Unfortunately, I ain't winning a lot. But, I mean, I like using their app.
You're enjoying the experience.
That's not their fault.
That's not their fault
make
that I
better
suck
picks.
at Prize Picks. I mean, whatever. You can be better than me at Prize Picks. It's America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It is the most fun and exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You can pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up 100 times your cash, Luke. You could have doubled on some Cubs stats this week.
Yeah,
you were hot.
I was
this
hot.
week on those on Circa. You could have done on Prize Picks too. All right, with Prize Picks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a Prize Picks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, like I said. So, you know, the NBA Finals, they start tonight. You know, Jason Tatum over 5.5 or more than 5.5 assists. Perhaps you could have gone Jaylen Brown over or more than 2 threes, and Luka on points because he's just been a god in the playoffs, and Kyrie because, well, I can't think of anyone else on the Mavericks besides Luka.
PJ Washington.
There you go. Yeah. So you can do it all on Prize Picks, especially right now at the NBA Finals. You got baseball. Could have done strikeouts for Hunter Green tonight. Could have done strikeouts for Assad, who had 7. I think that would have been more than what the line was tonight, if I remember correctly. I think his line was like 4 or 5. So you can do that all now. If you just download the app today and use code CHGO for your first deposit matchup to $100. That's code CHGO for your first deposit matchup to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Guys, some beers can say they're brewed for baseball, but only Blue Moon is brewed by baseball. Beer and baseball just go together, and no beer goes better than the one that was literally born in a ballpark. Blue Moon, created at Coors Field in Colorado. It's the natural choice for all season long. The weather this week has been 5 stars, summertime shy. It screams, give me a Blue Moon, and nothing beats watching baseball or lounging by the pool or sitting out on your buddy's rooftop deck. like having an ice cold Blue Moon with you and a nice orange slice. Blue Moon was brewed by baseball to give you a dose of nostalgia and get you excited for the season. A beer this good only comes around once in a blue moon, but you can enjoy it all season long. Bring the ballpark to you with Blue Moon Belgian-style wheat ale. It's one of a kind every time. Get Blue Moon delivered by visiting get.bluemoonbeer.com/CHGO to see your delivery options. That's get.bluemoonbeer.com/CHGO. Blue Moon, made brighter. Celebrate responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. What would be a Belgian accent? I was thinking I'd like to read that with a Belgian accent once, but I don't know exactly what that would sound like.
The only accents I know are like British and Australian.
That's not Belgian.
Yeah, it's not Belgium.
I don't believe it sounds Australian in any way, shape, or form. But
well, you brought it up.
I know. I was just curious if anybody can do one. I'd like to know if you could do that ad read for us with a Belgian. By the way, they're talking about once in a blue moon only comes around once in a blue moon. I heard the Northern Lights might be back.
Didn't they just happen?
They just happened like a week ago, but another solar storm. It could be happening again this week. Might be able to see them again.
I missed it last time, so I'd like to see that.
That would be kind of cool. Joey, do we have a super chat? I thought I saw Joe DiGiacomo, loyal viewer.
Joe DiGiacomo.
Super chat, $9.99, almost a $10, $226 million payroll, $8 million a year manager, 1.5 games out of last place. Great job, Jed. Why should he keep his job? ?
I'm proud of you for reading that without your readers.
You guys go
good. Joey switched it up on me. I had it on the larger font, and all of a sudden he flipped it over to the smaller screen. And I didn't miss it.
Well, Sunnyside Thursdays, it sort of changes, the room that we got to work for the comments. I like to leave the logo.
Are you mad at Jed? Mad at him yet?
Are we going to answer this question?
Yeah.
Okay. I've been voicing my frustration with the front office for the last month. All right, because, yeah, Joe, you're right, man. They're 8th or 9th in payroll, and we're about as mid is. Right now I'm hitting 500 in the CHGO softball league. I'm doing better than the Cubs right now. Shit. This is early in the season. You could make the argument for a lot of the injuries being a big part of why things weren't perfect, right? But today I tweeted some positive stats about the bullpen. Since May 1st, the Cubs bullpen has been the best strikeout. They've recorded more strikeouts than anyone else in baseball. All right, but on the flip side, they walk a lot of guys, which they showed that tonight. Yep. They've given up. They allow like the third most earned runs, and obviously they have a closer problem. These are the bullpen stuff. I understand a lot of the frustration with that. And I know there's still some guys that are hurt, like Almonte's hurt.
Yeah. Merriweather's
probably
hurt. A few weeks away.
Right. And they've kind of stabilized a little bit, and it's largely because of Ben Brown and Hayden Wisniewski and Mark Leiter Jr. being as good as he's been.
Tyson Miller's been pretty
Tyson
good.
Miller's been a great pickup. But I don't know what you could have done, but it felt like you needed a little bit more experience in there outside of Hector Neris. That said, I also looked up the amount of money that's spent on the Cubs bullpen compared to the rest of the league, and they're top 10. So in some ways, it's you didn't do enough, but also you've wasted some money too. I don't know. Like I said at the beginning of the year, Jed Hoyer, he's on the hot seat or he's out of here in my eyes. If it's up to me, if they don't make the playoffs, he should be fired. I don't think he'll be fired at the end of the year if they don't make the playoffs, but if it was me, yes. That's my expectations for this season was to be a playoff team. That doesn't necessarily mean win the division. That's not me saying they got to win a playoff series. Doesn't mean that they got to win the World Series, anything like that. It was just to simply make the playoffs because it is year 4 of his era, and they haven't done a lot of winning. They should have made the playoffs last year, and they didn't. And do I blame Jed for that? Not completely. There's a lot of factors into why they didn't make the playoffs last year, right? And they didn't even have expectations to make the playoffs last year. Now this year, they had some expectations to make the playoffs. Everyone here on this set said that they would make the playoffs. There were people in the national media that said that they can make the playoffs this year, all right? So I don't, Joe, like, I don't disagree, man. Like, the manager thing, I defended David Ross plenty last year because I've always said that the manager doesn't necessarily matter as much.
Were you saying you were Lil Ross? You became
No.
Lil Ross?
I wasn't like you. Did I say that he should have been fired in September? Yes, because of how things were going, and he just did the same thing over and over and over, and it was insanity. All right. But when a manager of Craig Counsell's resume is out there and he becomes available and you go and get him, like, yeah, I would absolutely, any team would have taken Craig Counsell over David Ross, okay? But as we've seen this year, they're doing a lot of the same things they did last year in terms of roster management and how they're playing young guys and stuff like that. And to me, it's showing that, like, the front office has a lot more control over how we're doing things in the dugout than Craig Counsell does. So that's just from the outside looking in. That's what it looks like to me. So I don't really know who to blame, whatever. Like, it's tough. I also tweeted today, they have a lot of glaring holes, and things they should be better than this if they didn't blow some games and stuff. But at the same time, if the playoffs started, they'd be in. But they could lose 3 in a row and be out of the playoffs immediately. Like, they are a fringe wild card team right now. And like I said, like, I asked to be a playoff team this year, and they're somewhat delivering that right now. But if they keep playing the way they're playing, they ain't going to be in the playoffs. That's the thing. So
well, I think that part of it is they're definitely fortunate the National League is full of mid to bad teams. Like, they have, 4 or 5 teams that are pretty good.
Yeah.
And then, the Cubs are a game under 500 in the third wild card position. Like, there's a lot of mid to bad teams in the National League, so they're fortunate. They're also only 5.5 back of the Brewers. Like, I know the Cubs have gone through this stretch and the Brewers have extended the lead out, but you look back to when they were at the end of April, I want to say they were a half game out of the division. Milwaukee was up half a game, and you think back to now, or you look forward to now, and that's a month and another week since that, right? And I feel like the Cubs are in this horrible place and the Brewers are in this great place. The Brewers have only won 5 more games, or extended that lead by 5 games since the beginning of May, which we know has been a bad month for the Cubs.
10 and 18.
So I'm not saying that as a defensive jet or anything. It's just the team's been playing bad. I still think this is a better team than what they've shown. That's what Jed says. I'm not just agreeing with Jed to agree with Jed. I do think this is a better team than what we've seen, but they played bad for a month, and it felt like the Brewers were playing great, and they're 5.5 back. That lead has only extended 5 games, and so it's not.
They were fortunate
it's not
to
the end
get
of
the
the
White
world.
Sox, and then the Brewers get swept by the Phillies. So,
but all I'm saying is that it's the as bad as they played, the division, the
lead isn't that bad.
The difference in the division isn't that
things
bad.
could be worse.
It
Like
could
I
be worse.
said.
Oh, you know what that leads me to? Let's put on our rose-colored glasses and explain to everyone why the future is bright for Christopher Morel. Brought to you by Shady Rays. Head to shadyrays.com. Use the code CHGO at checkout for 35% off polarized sunglasses. He's heating up. And I'm telling you, all the stuff that the Cubs behind the scenes are excited about, they keep thinking he's going to go on a Soriano-type slugging bender where he might be able to carry the team for 2 weeks or something like that. That's what they're hoping for. That's what they think they're seeing. And I know the defense hasn't been what everybody wants, but offensively, they're still very optimistic that he is the big bat that they have. He's the biggest threat that they have offensively, and that he will be able to carry them because he's been laying off stuff. We saw some good at-bats coming. Another home run tonight. I don't know what the celebration was, but I kind of liked it.
He's been doing that. He did it in Milwaukee.
I don't know what it is, but I kind of like it, and that's one reason to be slightly optimistic. One reason I would say I'm not optimistic is exactly what Ryan was saying. Hey, there's so many mid teams in the division, and the Brewers are only 5 games out, and I believe that's one of the reasons they didn't do more in the offseason. Because they knew this would be the situation in the National League, and they thought, listen, even if we don't go all in, we're still going to be sort of in.
Yeah. Well, just before we I wanted to do the Morel.
And then we got to go to break.
The Morel thing real quick. We've talked about just how unlucky he is, and the defense is a thing. And Craig Counsell the other day talked about they're continuing to evaluate. The process isn't over with that, and they're constantly evaluating everything that goes into it. David Bodie, part of it is he plays third base, right? And that's part of the calculus of bringing him up. Outside of they were hoping he could provide a little bit of a spark with the bat. Asked if Michael Bush played a lot of third base in the minor leagues, and I think even with the Dodgers last year, said that that's not the direction they're looking to go into right now. But if could be the future where they're we need someone else to play third base. Michael Bush is a guy that has experience there. Matt Shaw, I assume, is still not soon, but is still part of the calculus later in the season of if they need a third baseman and Matt Shaw is ready, I don't think they'd hesitate to make that move. So the defense, it's always a constant evaluation with Morel specifically at third base. But you talk about him heating up and why we talked so much about his expected stats and the BABIP and all the bad luck he's had, while the results at the end of the day are ultimately what matters. You saw the stats, the expected stats, the underlying things that you're these numbers should look so much better. And the last 6 games coming into today, hitting .316, had a 1090 OPS. He had the 2 home runs, 3 more walks. He was playing again the last week or so had been really good for him, and then obviously he goes out 2 for 4 I think tonight with the home run. It's been a good week for him.
And 2 walks instead of 1.
Yeah, and
Umpire screwed him too.
Yeah,
robot, please.
So it's been a good week for him results wise, and that's kind of what we've just been talking about. He's just been going through a phase where the ball is not falling for him, and when you look at the underlying numbers, you look at the expected stats, all that gives you confidence that this thing isn't going to last forever. This thing's not going to go forever. And now you're starting to see him break into that mold or he's at least getting into the phase where hey, the ball's still starting to fall. I've continued to do the same things. I've had the same plate approach, and now I'm actually seeing the ball fall in the grass or fall in the outfield or go over the fence. I'm seeing it now. Everything I was doing was right.
Speaking of grass, tell us about our friends at Sunnyside.
Our friends at Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary are here to elevate your summer. Sunnyside is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping. They have a crazy selection with over 100 different strains to choose from with easy online ordering and in-store pickup. Wherever you are in Illinois, Sunnyside has a location for you. They have spots as far south as Champaign and as far north as South Beloit. Stop in the store nearest you for expert guidance from their staff or select from quality lines like Cresco or Floracal. I'm picking Mindy Segal's award-winning chocolates at Sunnyside. You can too by heading to sunnyside.com or .shop and use code HICHGO, that's HICHGO, at checkout for 35% off. Again, sunnyside.shop, code HICHGO at checkout for 35% off brands like Cresco, Good News, and more to elevate your first purchase. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day, only for 21 plus or Illinois medical card holders.
Hey, by the way, hey everybody, don't miss out on we have a lot of events this summer, but I think probably the biggest one is the trip to Milwaukee. It's coming up at the end of the month on the 29th. It's a package deal. It's is it under $100 now? Just under $100, right around $100. Includes the party bus from Chicago to Circus Sportsbook in Waukegan. Pause, have a little fun there.
Oh, yeah.
Continue up to Milwaukee, tailgate, have a little fun. Include your ticket, have some fun in the ballpark, take over Milwaukee. You'll likely be taking on the first place Brewers still at that point. And you're hoping they're going to be very important games in this season. So it's the biggest thing you can do all season. If you want to go to any event, the Friday 120 Club's a lot of fun. It's been a huge success.
Yeah. The
Crosstown Takeover, huge success. The hangout was cool that we had. Mm-hmm. The watch party we had was good in Elk Grove. But the big one is the bus ride and the party in Milwaukee. And tickets on sale right now, allchgo.com.
$100 or $99.
$99.
That's what I'm saying. Just under $100,
well,
right?
The thing is, like you said, it's going to be should be a big series for the Cubs season.
Could be one of the biggest series of the season.
And, Cubs fans tend to take over American Family Field anyway. Miller Park, as it used to be called.
Right,
Cubs
now
fans-
Blue Moon Ballpark.
But now, but now you could do that with the CHGO Cubs team. Nothing better than that. Nothing better than taking over another ballpark with the CHGO Cubs team.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait.
Super excited
I'm
over
really
there.
excited.
Super excited.
No, I think it's going to be one of our most fun events. And by the way, the new shirt's out, too, the Shota shirt. Was
Yeah.
bad, slightly bad timing. He had a bad game the day we put it out.
Well, that's not our fault. So,
It's the baseball gods.
baseball
Baseball
guys.
gods.
Related to what you were saying, it's been on. This is why I'm not focusing on.
You mean when I said, listen, they knew the division and
Yes.
the National League were going to be
Yes.
bad, and so they didn't have to.
If
They
we
thought,
get-
well, we don't have to go chips all
Right.
in.
I will say this, and this is, I mean, I guess in some ways it's going to defend Jed a little bit, but the Boris pitching guys have not been good, and whether that's because they didn't sign until literally the end of spring training or not, that's, I know if the Cubs had signed Montgomery and he had a 6.80 ERA right now for the Cubs, all of you in this YouTube chat and all of you listening wherever else wouldn't give a shit that he didn't have his spring training. So
Be angry. They'd be angry.
they would be angry. All right. So he's not been good. He literally got booed off the field at Chase
I didn't see
Field the
that.
other day. All right. And Blake Snell has been hurt multiple times on top of not being good. All right. So as far as starting pitchers, so far you have the bargain of the offseason in getting Imanaga. Do I still wish that you would have been spending at the top of the free agent market in terms of someone like Yamamoto? Of course, but whatever. I don't.
Some of those,
I
some of the big
can't-
money guys have been bad.
Right. Well, Yamamoto and Ohtani have been great, and
Yeah.
they try to get Ohtani. I'm choosing to believe that they try to get Ohtani. All of you and your conspiracy theories, that's fine. You can do whatever you want to do, but I think basically how everything played out with Ohtani, we all kind of realized that Ohtani was Dodgers all the way. Okay, at least
He was betting on it.
at least we didn't get dealt like the Blue Jays
Oh,
fans
no, that
did.
was-
Okay, so
Oh yeah. What was it? Who was the guy from Shark Tank that everyone thought was Ohtani?
Yes.
That ended up
Yes.
being
Yeah.
his play?
Yes.
Tracking the flight.
Yeah.
Right.
Rob.
Mr.
Bob?
Wonderful?
Right.
Rob.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't Mr. Wonderful. It was the other
Right.
guy.
Rob then.
Rob,
So
yeah. I think it's his name.
It's all right.
I-
Forget about it.
I continue when you
Not Mr. Wonderful.
to go back to what you said about not going all in or doing all this. The only thing that I go back to that I'm like, you could have done this is trade for Juan Soto. That's the only thing, and that probably would have taken some a handful of prospects. You probably would, if you didn't want to send your entire farm. Well, not your entire farm because you have 1 year left, but you would have probably had to send at least 3 or 4 guys. And if you didn't want to send more than that, you probably would have to send Morel, in which he was always the one that I always would have been okay if they traded Morel for if it was Juan Soto. He was the only one.
Yes.
He was the only one that I would have been like, yes, this is who you trade or trade Christopher Morel for. All right. So the point
Yeah.
is that I'm making here is that as much as the Cubs could have gone and could have, had the biggest offseason like we all wanted, it's not like a lot of those guys have played to their abilities either and would have affected this team as well. It still comes back to the fact that your best players haven't been consistently good enough. I mean, Swanson had a good series against the White Sox, and then he sucked tonight. 3 strikeouts, okay? You continue to sit on the couch and complain about how Nico can't hit the ball out of the infield, okay?
I'm just when people tell me he's their favorite player, I love him too. I love everything he means as a baseball player. But you can't tell me that he's not tradable because the power's not there.
Sure.
And it's become a power game.
Right. And then, there's other guys too. Like, I think Bellinger and Seiya have been fine, but overall they haven't been what you needed them to be.
They haven't carried the lineup.
They haven't carried the lineup. And do I think that they will get better as the season goes along? Yes. Seiya hitting the home run tonight was
met
great.
expectations? Big expectations.
Mike Tauchman.
That's
And
it.
He's
That's what I'm telling you.
he's exceeded them.
expectations.
Anybody that's met or exceeded as a position player so far, you'd almost
Even-
have to say it's only Tauchman.
Even Ian Happ has gone through, he's been streaky. I guess you could say he's been who he is because he started the season hot, then went on
I think
then
Bush-
was was a slump for a month, and then now he's been hot. You mentioned Bush. Bush has been. I think Bush has met expectations.
Like he could look really good.
Because your
but he's gonna
expectations
go
were a little bit. And same thing. Tauchman didn't have the same expectations as you have for Seiya or for Bellinger or for Happ, but he has met or exceeded.
And when I say that Dansby has sucked, I mean you look at the OPS. It's below where he usually is. I said this to someone at the takeover the other day. Like, if by the end of the year, if Dansby has a 720 to 750 OPS, are you happy with that? And they're like, yes. That's basically what he's been for his entire career with Atlanta and with the Cubs last year, was somewhere between a 720 and 750 OPS. And he's below that right now, right? Like, they need more consistency from him offensively, and they just aren't getting it. Hopefully he bounces back tomorrow. Hunter Green, I'll give him a little bit of a break because Hunter Green is really good, okay?
Yeah.
But like this is what I'm saying though. Like, you're not getting consistent contributions from guys, and that's why I'm frustrated after sweeping the White Sox and not playing better against them. You come in tonight, again, like I said at the beginning of the show, you were better in terms of the defense. You didn't make any base running errors. It was more about just Assad not being sharp, not being able to go deeper in the game, and then your bullpen being taxed. And because Assad not being able to do what he did is a big part of why you lost tonight. So hopefully bounce back tomorrow with some guys. You got Justin Steele going, who I think has been pretty good his last 2 starts. He freaking gave you the best outing you possibly could have in the conditions that he played in on Saturday. So I feel good about him. They need
7 shutout in Milwaukee right before that.
Yeah.
Too.
They need Justin Steele of last year to pitch. Like, they need him to do that tomorrow, or basically like what he did against Milwaukee in his last start. Again, not his last start, but the start before. His last start, it was literally pouring the entire night at Wrigley Field, and they shouldn't have played that game.
Yeah, I was there 3 hours and 20 more minutes than I needed to be.
Yeah. So that's to. I hope that explains everything for to what I'm trying to prove here, is that it wasn't the best free agent class. There were some things you could have done on the trade market. They could have been creative on the trade market, and sometimes things just don't play out. We don't know. I can just sit here and bitch about it. That's fine, but like, I think the biggest complaint with the front office, going back to Joe's super chat and a lot of people in the YouTube chat in general, is that the team hasn't been creative on the trade market, or they haven't been aggressive with the young players, and it's frustrating because right now you're 500 and you should probably be better than 500, man. So figure it out.
A couple of injury
That's kind of it, right?
Yeah,
figure it out.
A couple of injury things we haven't talked about. One, no matter how many times somebody in the chat or on Twitter or on sports radio was like, get Madrigal off this team, send him to AAA, man, you got to feel bad for that guy.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah, I feel bad for him.
I mean, right out of the bat, goes down to Iowa and fractures his hand.
First game back, right?
I watched it. I was actually watching the game, the Iowa Cubs game. It was on Marquee when it happened.
Oh.
And, yeah, I mean, it was like his second at bat. And what's crazy is his first at bat, he actually almost hit an opposite field home run the first at bat of that game. And then the second at bat gets.
I'd feel bad for anybody. I'd feel bad for any player, but a guy that just got demoted, like he's already been kicked down a little bit, and then he's feeling bad about himself, maybe,
and
or
Cap
about the
said
situation.
on radio that he was mad
gone.
about getting demoted, and any player would be mad about getting demoted, but
he was already having a bad week, and then his hand fractured. The other one, to me, is more painful to the franchise, and that is we kept waiting for Cade Horton to get here. And now it's another 3-4 weeks before he's even throwing because of that strain.
Moderate subscapularis
scapularis strain.
It's like a right lat thing. I think is like kind of what's been like.
But if you were looking for a spark to maybe the bullpen or wherever they would use him, their top pitching prospect, it ain't gonna be Horton for the near future because it's 4 weeks before he's probably throwing. And then he's got to get back up to where he was, and then they probably want to get him comfortable again. They're not going to say start throwing in 4 weeks and start that at Wrigley Field, right? So it's going to be a while.
At this point, it feels like September at the earliest.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. So that's tough because Cade Horton was a guy that I don't like. we still didn't have like expectations that he would debut this year. Like it was like things go well, he moves up quickly, he could get up there, and like, or if they needed bullpen help or whatever kind of help they need, like he's a guy that could be on the radar for him this year. So pushing it back even a few weeks hurts that. So I guess we'll say, well, I won't say he's not going to pitch this year, but like it definitely hurts his chances of pitching this year. Nick Madrigal, man, if he was still on the major league team, he wouldn't have gotten hit. So no, I do. Like it is like you do feel for the guy, even though he wasn't performing to the level he needed to stay with the major league team. He would, I like when they sent Mastroboni down, when they brought Vasquez up, sent Mastroboni down, I was kind of sitting there expecting it to be Madrigal. His numbers were a little bit better than Mastroboni, but I thought like with the left-handed hitting thing, maybe Mastro stays. Either way, like one of them was going to go down at that point. I was a little more shocked that Madrigal was still up as long as he was, just because he still wasn't performing offensively. So it didn't surprise me to see. So it didn't surprise me to see him go down. But yeah, it's first game back. Like he's a guy that was gonna try to do everything he could to get back up to the big league roster, and obviously gets hit in the hand, gets hurt, and now I don't think we saw like a timeline or anything, but it doesn't sound like it's gonna be anytime soon for him to even try to get back to the big league.
Do we see Madrigal in Cubs uniform again?
Ooh, that's interesting. I'll say probably. I'll say probably, but I'm not putting it over 51%. I don't know.
I'll say this. It hurts in terms of depth because say Bodie gets hurt, then like.
Well, that's why I was going to say it is over 51% because I never thought you'd see David Bodie again.
Right.
And lo and behold, there he is.
That's fair.
And like again, like if.
Apparently, you were like the biggest anti-Bodie.
I wasn't anti-Bodie. I just didn't think it was. If they had called a bunch of guys up, I thought financially they're not doing this for a reason because they don't want to go over this amount. Now they were able to fudge that a little bit because of the ALLCITY thing, but I still think I'm still surprised they did it. Mm-hmm. It was like, who else are they going to call up? Right? Like, who else are they going to call up? He's down there. He's playing pretty well. So I was like, what's the scenario that they're going to bring him up? Well, we found out what it is. He's here.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a problem with it.
No, I'm just, it was like,
right?
People,
no, I don't.
Like,
I said, before he broke his hand and before I felt bad for him, if you had to tell me, hey, so-and-so is playing third base and the season's on the line tonight, I'd rather have Bodie playing third base than Nick Madrigal.
It's not a hot take.
No, it's just, that's a kind of a realistic take. If I had to win one game, I think Bodie gives me a better chance than Madrigal.
Possible. Just a guy that has more potential power in the bat.
It's not a ton. There's more power.
Yeah. There's more power in the bat. It's possible, yeah.
We need
Gary
Bodie.
says it didn't matter. Okay, Gary.
Need Bodie to stay healthy because if he gets hurt, then like Madrigal's broken hand is tough because then it's Mastroboni, who they haven't played at third base at all this year, or Vasquez, who, as much as I'd like to see him, like clearly the Cubs aren't fully believers in him right now. So like I just feel like Bodie's very important. Just his health is important with Madrigal's injury now. So that's the only like thing that kind of worries me about the entire situation, outside of just feeling bad for the guy. But I don't know. Hopefully by the time that hopefully in 2 months we get to see Matt Shaw. That's all I'm saying.
See, Gary says I'm wrong. Gary says I'm wrong about the Bodie money. Yeah. I'll take that.
I think
I'm wrong all the time.
I think
Gary's
I tried to trade Wisdom and Hap for Moncada.
Yeah.
Gary is extremely upset that we did not see Tyson Miller tonight.
Yeah, he's mad.
He
also would like to retrade for Slaughter.
He would, yes.
Listen, I will say this.
Retrade. He's
so upset about not seeing Tyson Miller.
Have we given Gary credit yet? He called Hard Knocks. As first reported by Gary Ross.
Yeah, we've given Gary credit. We give Gary credit
for Hard Knocks.
Gary had Hard Knocks. You had Jake Slaughter first. Like that was your guy first.
Gary and I also had.
I'm pretty sure we've given him a lot of credit.
Don't even say the Bellinger. Don't even say the
Bellinger. In the Discord, we're giving him credit all the
time,
man.
You can't take any credit for that. You can't take any credit for that. You had 3 separate dates before that.
You can combine us. It was Lou Gehrig.
No. I won't give you any credit for that one.
Steele tomorrow. Need a big start from Steele. Who won? Who you got tonight, Joey?
That's a good
who were
question.
the picks? I don't even know who they were. Did you make a pick, Joey?
I believe that I picked
Gomes.
Or
were you a
Suzuki.
Gomes guy
I
tonight?
picked either Morel or Suzuki, whoever wasn't picked.
Before we get to that, let me update the standings.
Love CHGO, but these takes, oh boy.
Want me to update the standings?
I've
real
read
quick?
your takes in the chat too, James. So
The chat's been very angry.
Man, the chat's got some
I got to tell you, the
got some
chat
takes,
has
brother.
been angry with people today. Hashtag, Robbie says, hashtag, I agree with Luke. See, now we're coming around.
James was saying earlier that we need to own the fact that we were saying that they could get into the playoffs and make noise, as if that's not even remotely possible anymore. Like,
Yeah,
Are they a game under 500?
that was one of the takes earlier.
that we should
we were being
apologize.
I'm not apologizing for
that
anything.
they couldn't get in,
I'm
as if
confused.
there's no chance to make the playoffs?
As if we were backing off of that.
No, I've said I still think this is a better team. I still think it's a team that can make the playoffs. And I don't know if I ever said I think they'd make noise, but like, could they win a playoff series? Probably.
That's noise.
Like, yeah, some noise. I don't see them going to the World Series like the Diamondbacks
He
did.
got in and
They're just playing.
advanced once. That would be noise.
They've just
I could go
not
through
been
the
playing well
YouTube
for a few
chat.
weeks, but I think
I
there's
could go
plenty of
back
time for them to turn it around.
I could go back 6 months of every one of our shows if I really want to, if I had the time and the energy, and just screenshot so many takes from the YouTube chat and put a lot of you on blast, but I don't because I'm a nice guy and I like y'all.
And
right?
because
so
we
I'm
love-
not going to apologize
we
for
love the
anything
fact-
that I say. Okay.
We love the fact that they're sickos. I just wish they would argue less with each other. There's a little
a
it's not
hostility.
just there's a little hostility between some folks on there.
It seems like it.
I did
and
notice,
another thing, no one is always right. Okay?
Right.
There you
No
go.
one is
Perfect.
always
not,
right.
not even me. Not
Okay.
even me. Credit to me and humble of me to admit it.
No.
It's like 99%,
Well,
but it's
and
not
I
all the
have,
time.
and I have said when I was wrong many times on here.
If
Okay,
we're going by who you got standings, I'm right more than everyone.
credit to you,
So,
Ryan.
Yeah.
Credit to
just,
you.
Just want to throw that out there. I know we got off track because we were about to talk about who won, who you got.
Who you got? Who won?
I think it was me. I don't remember what happened, but I think
Let's
it was
skip
me.
who you got tonight.
Amaya had a hit.
Bellinger had a double, hustle double at that.
Anyway,
I don't even know.
Could
who
be
you
worse.
picked.
Could have lost 14 straight.
could have.
Yeah, dude, they were celebrating
Listen,
a hit in the sixth inning, seventh inning.
to the
Kevin
point.
Wells. Now Kevin Wells is yelling at us. Ryan
was
was
wrong.
wrong about PCA.
To the,
Wrong about what?
to the point of like
Have they won a lot of games?
to the point of the
since?
comment that Joey said about like thinking
That's right, Charlie.
us apologizing or
Charlie Ruby
whatever.
knows.
As angry as I am about this team
Me
right
too.
now and how they're playing, there is part of me that still thinks they can make the playoffs. Yes, they just have to play better. They have to play their expectations. They're not doing it, all right? I know right now it's hard to believe that they could, but there's still a lot of baseball left. We're not even at the All-Star break.
Last question.
And they're a game under 500. Like, it's not like they're 10 under 500 like they were a
Yes.
year ago. So,
And what did we predict for wins? I said 90. That was the high one?
Was that like 86?
I said 89.
I think.
Okay, for 90. If you were Circa Sportsbook tonight, you would give somebody plus whatever if they stuck with that 90.
Okay.
Plus,
What would I be like? Plus 500 right now?
No.
Not even that high, right?
I would say plus 200.
See? You're saying
they
there's
got
a
tight
chance.
money line splits, so.
Tight
Yeah.
money line splits is what it's
and
all
the only
about.
reason I say that is because the Cubs are one of like 5 teams that are like, now they're a game under 500, but going into today, they were one of 5 teams in the National League that were 500 or better.
It's less likely that they're going to win 90 games than it was a while back,
Yeah.
but it's not totally outrageously impossible.
They just have to,
Very unlikely.
they have to get,
90 isn't
The
happening.
Cubs are one game
Charlie, just
under
remember.
500, one game under 500 here on June 6th. 2021. I mean, you could cherry
What was
pick
their
stats
record?
like
What
this
was
from
their
any year.
record?
The Braves in
June
2021 were one game under 500 on June 6th.
What was their
they
record
won the
last year,
World
June 6th?
Series.
Ooh.
Is that making noise?
June 6th
Is that
last year,
would
what was
making the
record?
World Series would winning the World Series constitute
They're
as
gonna
making
yell at
noise?
you for saying that.
That's fine. I'm speaking facts. I'm not saying the Cubs are going to win the World Series and be the Braves, but to assume that because they had to eke out 2 wins in early June versus the White Sox and then lost to the Reds, that the season's over, pack it up, we have to be sellers, everything, that they can't
There's a lot
possibly
of
make the
DFA.
playoffs. That is wrong.
Yeah.
That is wrong.
That's where me and you agree, Joey 1K.
I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs. I'm not saying they're going to make the World Series,
I'm
but let's not
well,
close
I
the
am saying
book
they're
yet.
gonna win 90. I'm sticking with the 90.
Now, if you want
Plus
to
300.
believe
Yeah.
the season is over just to save yourself from
How you
pain
wanna
and
cut?
misery, I guess, like, go ahead. But,
That's right,
I'm
Sean.
paid to be here to watch this team, so I guess I'm just going to keep believing for a couple more months.
600 win percentage, rest of the way to get to 90 wins.
Yeah.
I said 89, so, you were more optimistic than me.
Just remember,
600,
last
that's 3 out
year-
of 5.
I said 83.
Yeah.
I said Bellinger 24.
Just remember
No, you
when
didn't.
the first time that you brought that up, just remember I was really miserable at the time because
I
the
said
reason that
Madrigal's
we
gonna
got
home
there
run,
was for a
Madrigal.
very, very bad
true.
reason. I should have been right last year.
I should have been right. I should have got one more win. I would have been right.
Alas,
we don't have to hear
I was
Luke
the one
talk
that was
about
And
it.
I
for the
want to
last
say
6
all
months.
everybody has 100% right to be concerned with the way
No,
this team
yeah.
is playing. That's 100%. I am too. I'm not picking them to make the playoffs at all if they continue to play like this, if they don't turn it around. But I'm acknowledging that we're 1/3 of the way through the season and there is a lot of time to get back on track. And we'll see what that looks like.
And there are a lot of worse teams
Yeah.
in the Cubs right now.
No, I think that's what I was saying
Nico
earlier.
X-rays they want to talk about.
Nico X-rays?
Somebody said X-rays. Nico.
Did they talk about? I didn't see a tweet like that.
What, for the hit by pitch?
Yeah.
But so while I look to see if that's been tweeted out, I think it just was kind of my point of what I was saying earlier that this was game 63 of the season. They're just barely under 100 games left in the season now. You got 4 more months of baseball, just about. Like there's a lot of baseball left to play, and like I said, like and people are clearly disagreeing with me in the chat. Feel free to disagree. That's fine. I do think this is a better
all the
team than
time.
what we've seen in May. I know that people disagree with me all the time. What we've seen in May and even the first week or so of June, like I do think this is a better team than that, especially with the offense. I think the offense has actually started to get it rolling a little bit more in the last week or so, last week and a half. I think they've actually been looking better and are starting to come out of that like long, like team-wide funk. The pitching hasn't been as good as it was, keeping them in those games throughout that month. But I just think overall this team is better than what we've seen and what they've shown. And as we said, there's a lot of bad teams in the National League, so it's just about figuring it out. Like as we get closer to the trade deadline, I do believe the front office will go and make moves and address things that need to be addressed. Jed said on Tuesday it's a little early to it's a little early to rush to make decisions. I don't think that's so far in the future, but to him it was a little bit early. So the point is, like, I think that there's still time for this team to turn things around. They're in a playoff spot right now. Like the season's far from over, and I think the front office will address holes on this team that need to be addressed. And I think this is a better team than what we've seen over the last few weeks. And I do still sit here and say that I think this is a playoff team. Am I predicting they make the playoffs and make noise? It's hard to because they haven't played that well lately. But I do still think this is a team that will be in the playoff picture at the end of the season, whether they're in it or not. That they will be in there because I think
They'll be
this
in
is a
the
better
chase.
team. I think this is a better team than what we've seen since basically the start of May. For overall, I think they've played a little bit better lately, but.
Megan Montemurro tweeted that Nico
I forgot to
Horner
look
got
for
a
that.
precautionary X-ray on his
Yeah.
hand after getting hit by the fastball from Hunter Green in the 4th inning, and counsel said that they think he's okay.
I think we're okay was the quote, I think.
Said the same
believe.
thing last night about Christopher Morel, and then he hit a homer tonight. So maybe Nico will hit a homer tomorrow. And that will please you because all you do is complain about him not slugging more, which I agree with you with, actually.
I mostly don't understand it.
Yeah.
He's not.
Yeah, I just
slugging
don't understand why he
I-
doesn't have more pop.
This is what I'll say about
It's
Nico.
not like he's frail.
You know how in the spring we were all talking about how, like, man, like the swing looks different.
Yeah.
Looks like he's trying to hit the ball in the air more, which I'm open to seeing it. But like, has it affected his overall offensive game? Because I just feel like the hits aren't there this year consistently. He hasn't been nearly as consistent as he was last year. At least that's what it feels like. I feel like I need to go on to Fangraphs and look up the game logs through this date last year and compare it to this year, and maybe I'll feel better. But to me, he's been underwhelming, and like, I'm with you on the fact that like he's not like an untouchable piece.
No, and that's all I was saying. He's one of my favorite players on the team. I really like him as a player. Yeah. I'm just saying because of the lack of power, if you were trying to trade for a big piece and they said we need a major league player, he wouldn't be untouchable.
And you struck a nerve on that, Luke. I mean, just looking at the chat, like there was a lot of people that disagreed with that, and there was a lot of people that thought like, hey, that's an interesting idea, and I don't think that doesn't make sense.
Back in the day, if you had to get Juan Soto and one of the pieces
100%.
being included would have been Nico Horner and a prospect, I could rather have Juan Soto. As much as I like Nico,
it goes to show, I think,
but
how some people view the team.
But you understand what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I'm just saying, if a team came to you with a big, you can't just trade guys you don't want. That's not how the real world works.
Right.
If you're trying to get something that's very valuable, you're going to have to give some value back.
Nico, as much as I feel a little underwhelmed about him this year, he's still a good player, and his defense has improved. And comparatively
Works
to
hard,
the start
does
of the
all
year.
the right things, comes prepared. Yes, all of it.
He's a leader in that clubhouse for as young as he is, right? Like he's younger than I am. It's still kind of funny to me, but like,
that's crazy.
But
I just feel like
he's a leader in that clubhouse, and that brings some kind of value. It may not increase his batting average or on base percentage or whatever, but like that brings value to a team, especially when they're in a mode of like trying to get back to being cohesive like they were the first few weeks.
He has walked more than last year this year, based off the eye test, I would guess, at least. And
I'm just like,
I don't know.
Again, I'm not trying to include Nico in deals. I'm saying eventually this team's going to have to make a bold move, I think.
Are you trying to give up all the young players too?
Yeah, right, Barb?
Yeah, you and Cody now, you joined the train.
I thought 2 years ago the White Sox should have made a bold move. They didn't make it. Yeah. Eventually, it looks like this version of the Cubs will have to make some sort of bold move to change the team somehow. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll end up winning 90 games, and you'll say, why would you? Still, down the road, eventually.
Your big moves, they don't always have to come. You don't have to push it all the way down the road. Like, look at what happened and it was obviously
the Braves let Swanson and Freddie Freeman go.
It was obviously a totally different situation, but if the Cubs had traded Chris Bryant 2 years before they did, think about what the different return would have been. And they were in no position where they ever would have done that, but that's sometimes how you maximize the return in a trade. It's timeliness. It's foresight of where a player's heading. And so you have to be willing to take a swing on that, for lack of a better term.
You can't play afraid all the time.
Right. That's really, you got to be bold, which is what Sean's saying too.
Yeah. And I've said that a lot too. I feel like the bold move, the impactful move has been lacking from the front office. And I wish that they would have one that we could at least be somewhat excited about or pissed off about. That way I could grade them easier, because some of the moves that they have made in free agency and trades have been great. And it's like, man, this front office is good. But then you look at the on-field product and we're like, this team clearly misses a big impact bat. They're missing a closer and probably another high leverage arm. They're missing, a catcher, like a better catcher at least than Yan Gomes at this point. Like, these are all things that when we're back here on Monday we'll be talking about. Like, this ain't going away, man.
No, and like. It's kind of what we said, like the microcosm of the Sox series. Like, they got 2 wins, and that's great, and you should be happy that they got a couple wins and swept that series. But like, concerns are real. Concerns about the team are real, and like, so just to my point of like, I think is a better team. Yeah, if I'm wrong at the end of the season, y'all can come in here and yell at me. Like, I'm sure you will anyway. Like you are yelling at me constantly, but whatever. But like. Yeah, you said it. Like, Monday, they're still gonna, even if they sweep the rest of the weekend, Monday you're still like, the concerns of the team the concerns around this team that we've seen develop over the last few weeks don't just go away.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's like you just need them to continue to play better, keep getting better offensively, pitching step up, bullpen step up, and like that's what you need to see from this team at this point if they're gonna, just try to climb up the standings.
I will say, if they do win the next 3, I'll definitely come in here a lot happier.
Be happier and a little more optimistic because they
Yeah.
did against a team they've already lost 3 or 4 to,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And a team that's been playing well.
And it's an off day on Monday, so I'll come in, feel good. Then me and Ryan go to the softball game, and I'll try and improve on my batting average.
Barb
again.
will say you tried to trade Nico.
Yeah.
I'll try to get another home run.
You
for
hate
guys.
Nico.
Hi, Nico. I want to trade everyone. Blah, 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 blah. Whatever, brother.
All right. Thanks for checking out
What was that?
Cubs lose.
Let's go Steele tomorrow.
Cubs
Steal the
lose
show.
8-4 to the Reds. Hopefully Steele turns it around. Thanks for checking out the show.
Corey and Brennan
make sure you hit
on Sunday.
the thumbs up button on the way out, and make sure you subscribe to the CHGO Sports YouTube page if you haven't already, and get your tickets for that Milwaukee trip. No live show tomorrow.
Sunday, Corey and Brennan.
Sunday, Corey and Brennan, and then back on Monday with the regular show.
Off
starting
day
up again.
show, I believe, on Monday.
Off day show on
Yeah,
Monday.
we might.
Maybe we do a mailbag.
Yeah, we'll start with Would You Trade Nico?
I know Luke's answer to that.
No, I don't. It depends on the pack. It depends on what you're getting back.
It was just a joke. It was just a
I know.
DJ says Nico for Slaughter and Nelson Velasquez.
No. As much as I want Slaughter back,
No one
That's
wants
your guy.
Slaughter more back than Luke.
That's your guy.
it's always been my guy, Slaughter. All right, thanks everybody. Don't forget, fly the W.